Hello and welcome again to the Writer Review. This is Eric Theriot Writer, and this week we're going to be taking a look back at the 2007 mystery comedy movie titled Nancy Drew. Now, Nancy Drew runs for 1 hour and 39 minutes long. It is directed by Andrew Fleming. The script was written by Andrew Fleming and Tiffany Paulson. It is based off of the stories, the Nancy Drew stories by Edward Stratemeyer, who also did other children, junior mystery stuff like the Hardy Boys, Tom Swift, the Bobbsey Twins, you name it. And of course, Nancy Drew. It is produced by Jerry Weintraub. It is composed by Ralph Sal. The cinematography by Alexander Grzinski. And it was edited by Jeff Freeman. And the stars of the movie are Emma Roberts, Josh Flitter, Max Theriot, Tate Donovan, Rachael Leigh Cook, Barry Bostwick, Marshall Bell, Laura Harring, Daniella Monet, Kelly Vitz, Caroline Aaron, Adam Clark, Pat Carroll, Amy Bruckner, Kay Panabaker, Cliff Bemis, and Kaityln Van Item. Plus, we also have cameo appearances from Bruce Willis, Chris Kattan, Adam Goldberg, Lindsay Sloan, Eddie Jemison, and Garrett Wynn Davis. So Nancy Drew might translate effectively towards the narrative it has to offer, but it's not really saying much as I speak. This movie just never really had any kind of effect or impact or any influence on me whatsoever. Maybe it's because I'm of the wrong gender. But there is no such thing as a wrong gender when watching a movie. Everybody's all treated equally. And anybody at any age can watch any movie they like or they choose. But obviously, this movie just did not fit my age demographic period. I mean, unless I was of a child between the ages of 8 to 13, which is something I'm obviously not. So I can't really say this movie really was meant for me to watch. But I still watched it anyway. Because I'm the type of person who will watch anything. I will sit through anything, even if it doesn't reach my age group or has any kind of positive or negative effect on me. Well, it had no negative effect on me in any way, shape, or form. But it also didn't have any positive effect on me. In fact, this movie is a definitive meh to me. I mean, it was harmless, yes. I guess the movie was easy to follow, true. But did it leave me with any kind of lasting impression? No. The series of books have had a lasting impression for young girls since its inception that can be dated back in the 1930s. The movie might have a lasting impact towards its target audience, who have been awaited for this moment when this iconic mystery-solving character will make it to the big screen. And though there are almost 175 books based off of Nancy Drew, plus its spin-offs like the Hardy Boys, Tom Swift, the Bobbsey Twins, you name it, and several crossovers to boot, it wasn't surprising that one of these days this character was going to get adapted into a movie. However, unless you're a preteen girl between the ages of 8 to 13, many past that age might find the movie to be unsavory, mundane, tedious, and very predictable. Obviously, I don't fit the same gender or the age demographics. And maybe this might be my biased opinion. But if you're into these kind of movies, hey, the more power to you, to each their own. But I don't know, I just didn't have any kind of lasting effect. The characters in this movie are quite dry and underwhelming. The mystery story is thin and quite unexciting, and the plot just extended to just reach the 95-minute mark with very little in between. Would I say the same thing about the Hardy Boys or the Bobbsey Twins or Tom Swift? I probably would have said the same thing because, let's face it, this is all very, very much not within my age territory. This might be a bit of a biased review on my part, but I just couldn't get invested because it just wasn't very impactful. I mean, it's quite clear that the screenwriters, Andrew Fleming, who also directed the movie, and Tiffany Paulson had done their homework on the Nancy Drew character due to the many characters from the books they included in the movie, even though the main focus was Nancy Drew herself. It was also very convenient that they set the story in the town where Nancy Drew resides, the fictional town of River Heights. So at least we'll give that credit where credit is due. Even though River Heights is pretty much almost becomes an afterthought after the first 10 minutes of the movie. The first 10 minutes you see, of course, Nancy outsmarting a couple of cat burglars who are stealing items from, I don't remember whether it was an abandoned warehouse or an abandoned church. Anyways, she uses, of course, her supreme intelligence and her quick wits and her vast resourcefulness to overcome these cat burglars and send them to jail while almost risking her life as well. So the story has Nancy, played by Emma Roberts, along with her single father, Carson Drew, played by Tate Donovan, as they moved to the big city of Los Angeles because of Carson's job. Though she promised her father that she was not going to do any sleuthing, we know that her fixation will come into full effect. It's like sleuthing is just something she's just organically good at, and something that she just can't resist. Nancy seems to take a great interest in the house that she and her father has rented, because this house is just plagued with mystery, plagued with suspense, and plagued with some unanswered questions. And we know what that means. Nancy is going to start sleuthing again. The place is an old mansion that once belonged to a Hollywood movie star by the name of Daniella Draycott, played by Laura Elena Harring, who was killed 25 years ago under mysterious circumstances. And just like any great mystery solver, Nancy will go to great lengths to piece the puzzles together to finally get to the bottom of Daniella Draycott's murder and all its deep and dark secrets that come within. It is said that she had a child who might have the potential to inherit Daniela's wealth. Nancy, with her capabilities and gift for tracking people down, she finds a single mother by the name of Jane Brighton, played by Rachael Leigh Cook, who might be the sole inheritor to Draycott's estate. So Nancy is joined by her boyfriend Ned, played by Max Theriot, and an irritating local named Corky, played by Josh Flitter. But there's someone out there that doesn't want the truth to be revealed and will do any means necessary to keep this quiet. I mean, anything necessary. even if it means doing something quite evil. But in typical Nancy Drew fashion, nothing stands in her way. And although they set the titular character to a more modern setting, Nancy herself still somehow has her mindset on 1950s ideology. It's like time has stopped with her, and maybe even her town of River Heights. While everybody seems to have adapted to a more modern lifestyle, Nancy still somehow lives like the 1950s is still going. From her clothes to her manners, and her outlook on life is quite retro in that time period. I mean, she still wears penny loafers. She still seems to kind of have that more bubbly, more upfront personality that seems to be more like conservative-minded people were like in the 50s, compared to today, which seems to be much more cynical, materialistic, and trendy. This could have been passed on for a comical situation like the characters from the Brady Bunch movie. If you remember that movie, while everybody was all adapting to 90s style sensibilities, the Brady Bunch were all like living like they were still living in the 70s. From their cars, to the house, to their manners, to their clothes. The only problem is that Nancy's still living like it was the 50s. There is no humor. There is really no charm to it. And it's played off like it's normal, without anyone really casting full judgments. Although there might be some little snickerings here and there, but even that wasn't without its well, it was just very subtle in its debunking. The debunking seems to come across as being minimalized, not like full-blown ridicule. And even after a while, her ridiculing turned into respect from her peers. I mean, after all, she also appears to be like a prodigy child in the school. You know, she can do things at a much quicker pace than a lot of people. She can outperform anybody. Hell, she even once performed a medical procedure on somebody who passed out at her party from a peanut allergy. And yet, I don't think she ever even went to medical school. But she still managed to successfully revive this individual. Nancy herself at times looks vulnerable and naive instead of empowering or independent. Okay, she seems to still live in this 50s atmosphere. Of course, if she was living in 2007 standards, she would probably be like the strong, independent woman type. Even if it meant for her to be cold, stoic, and a bit uppity in nature. But the problem is, there really isn't much character to Nancy unless you read the books. And if you never read the books, you're not going to know much about Nancy Drew. I mean, performance-wise, yeah, Emma Roberts did a fine performance in like movies like Aquamarine. So she is a very capable actress, coming from a family of thespians, including her father Eric and her aunt Julia. So she does have the acting bug pretty much implanted in her. And I saw her in the movie Aquamarine. She was good. But in Nancy Drew, she's just a blank. She lacks any charisma and charm like the character from the book series, which is disappointing because I was expecting a lot more from her. And not just because she's from an acting family, but because of the fact that there really isn't much to be invested in, because Nancy Drew is just a flawless individual who has no faults or no flaws within her to even give her any sympathy, because she never gives us any chance to give her sympathy. I mean, when she's in the face of danger, she still seems to put on a bit of a laid back type of way. I mean, she just stays in that approach even when her life is in danger. I mean, okay, it's fine that she is self-contained, but I think she's a little bit too self-contained. And if you think that Emma Roberts lacks charisma and charm, well, her other co-stars don't fare really any better, as Max Theriot is clueless as her boyfriend Ned, and Josh Flitter is just pure cringe as her fat friend Corky, who looks like a mini-me version of Dan Schneider. You know, it's actually quite pitiful that the only good performance comes from an unbilled cameo appearance from Bruce Willis, and even I think that too was just like, came at the last second. I mean, it's like I'm giving the impression that Bruce Willis only made this cameo appearance because he just happened to walk on the set, and all of a sudden, the director says to Bruce, "Hey, would you like to do, maybe 10 minutes of cameo appearance?" And Bruce is probably like, "Yeah, why not? I got some time to kill. Yeah, okay, Mr. Willis. I want you to play an actor who's starring in a 50s murder mystery." "Yeah, okay, I'll do it. Yeah, no problem." "Okay, great. We'll pay you under the table." "Alright, yeah, no problem. I think we can, squeeze in a few moments." I mean, that was the only really fun performance, was just seeing Bruce Willis in less than 5 minutes of screen time. That was the only time that I actually kept at least a little level of interest. But other than that, it was just pure laboring to watch. And sure, I understand that the Nancy Drew mysteries are not at the adult level of contemporaries like Ian Fleming, who wrote the James Bond movies, or Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who did the Sherlock Holmes books. Well, eventually they all got adapted into movies too, or TV series. For the younger age demographics, sure, they're fun to get involved with, and it might inspire kids who wish to pursue their careers in the field of investigation, police work, or criminology. But for adults, we feel that these kind of stories to be very laboring at times, especially with characters you care very little about, have little intrigue about the mystery. And the villains also seem to strike me as being embarrassingly cartoonish. And the outcome in the end was quite anticlimactic. Okay, sure. They actually found out the will to Dahlia Draycott's will belonged to... what's the name of Rachel Lee Cook's name again? Oh, yeah, Jane Brighton's... the will belongs to Jane Brighton, being her only daughter. And, there was a lot of corruption and things like that. Yeah, but it still ended up being anticlimactic in the end. and there was no real appeal to it. I kind of wish there would have been maybe some level of comeuppance. But it turns out there was just very little to keep me invested. I think they played it safe, but the problem is they played it way too safe, to the point where it was more kid-friendly and less adult-friendly. And I think this is just part of my biased opinion. I think they just played it too safe for my taking. So Andrew Fleming, who directed the movie, did likely appease to his fan base, but offered very little to take interest. If you happen to be one of those fanatics who have read every Nancy Drew book, expecting you'll get the same character adapted to the screen, you will be sadly disappointed. I'm not saying it's the worst movie out there in the world, but it will tend to favor those who will see as many faults as people tend to overlook. I saw this movie and it was pretty much overall quite forgettable in its details and stuff like that. The best way to approach this is by not getting your expectations too high. Sure, the movie was meant to be made by today's market, as she had been adapted to television and movies from the past. It's just a shame they took a dynamic character like Nancy Drew and did very little to her. But Fleming did little to her to make her unappealing and uninspiring. So, I can't really say I would recommend you to see Nancy Drew from 2007. Because it was, not to say that it was hard to sit through, but it was just played way too safe. And although, like I said, maybe the kids or the pre-teens could probably find some level of enjoyment to this movie definitely was not meant for adults. And it almost became a bit tedious and embarrassing to watch at times. So when all is said and done, if I was to give this movie a scale out of 10, I would give Nancy Drew from 2007 a 4.5 out of 10. This one was a bit of a disappointment for me. So I guess this ends my ride review. Thank you all for listening again. If you wish to subscribe to my YouTube channel, please feel free to do so. If you wish to leave a comment, go right ahead. But just remember the 3 simple rules. Be kind, be courteous, and please refrain from any rude comments. And I will be back again with another movie review. So until next time, this is Eric Correct Writer saying, keep out those movies, and I'll see you around. Goodbye.